Gamers, gals, and my non-binary pals. If you are going to a YCS this weekend, or like tomorrow, you need to be up to snuff on what the Ishizu cards are. You guys may be wondering how good they actually are. Well, on today's Smarter with Stevie, turns out the Ishizu cards are really fucking good. So let's just jump right into it. So what are the Ishizu cards? Basically, they are a series of retrained cards that Ishizu used in the anime / manga of Duel Monsters. Now, they all sort of had this loosey-goosey fairy archetype, roll a dice, wall of illusion shit. But in the new set, they've sort of been condensed down into having one thematic point of focus, which is exchange of the spirit. It is now extremely focused around milling cards to set up or shut down graveyard strategies, just like Necro Valley or anti-Necro Valley. I don't know, this deck is goofy as shit. But all these cards basically focus on milling cards or moving cards out of the graveyard, and they have a bonus effect of exchange of the spirit, which is Ishizu's ace trap card, is in the graveyard. And the cards are split between, again, mill 5s and transmigration prophecies. You can think of the Ishizu cards as split into two pairs. Cards that mill 5 that are hand traps, and cards that are extenders that move cards out of the graveyard. So we're going to talk about the first half, which is Kelbeck. It is a hand trap that bounces a special summon monster if the opponent mills or foolishes. And if it's sent from the deck or field to the graveyard, each player mills 5 cards. If you have exchange of the spirit in your graveyard, the bonus effect will be you get to also set a trap card from your graveyard. So something like Infinite Permanence or Gravekeeper Strap if you are playing it. Next up is yugioh. It's a hand trap that special summons a level 4 Earth Fairy from the graveyard if your opponent mills or foolishes. Same effect as Kelbeck, you mill 5 if it's sent, and the bonus effect is that you get to target a specific player and have that person mill 5 more. So if you really want to, you can make your opponent mill 10. So that's really funny. But this is probably the worst one, mainly because it doesn't really do anything on its own. Third, we have Keldo, the possessed statue. Why does this statue have tits? I don't really know. I don't make the rules. You can discard an Earth Fairy to special summon itself and search anything within its archetype, also known as anything with exchange of the spirit in its name and or text. And as a quick effect, you can banish itself from the field or graveyard to shuffle 3 of any cards in either graveyard into the deck. And if exchange of the spirit is on the field or the graveyard, you get to do 5 instead. Banger. It's straightness. Like, I don't think I have to explain why straightness is good. And now we have Mudora. Again, same effect. It is the other half of the pair. You discard an Earth Fairy to special summon itself, and it places Gravekeeper's Strap from the deck face up. Very similar to Virtual City Kowloon. It has a quick effect, again, same exact effect as yugioh, or whatever the fuck the titty fairy statue is called, who banishes out from the field or graveyard, shuffle 3. If exchange is on the field or in the graveyard, you shuffle 5. And it's a free special. Sets up Gravekeeper Strap easily if you decide to play it. Nothing really wrong with this gamer. And finally, we have the Ishizu mommy herself, Gravekeeper Strap. Basically, it's a one-sided Necro Valley if exchange of the spirit is in the graveyard. So that means your opponent can't move stuff, they can't special summon stuff, they can't activate stuff. It's fucking nuts. You could discard a card for cost, and you could add a Gravekeeper card or an Earth Fairy. Technically, it's an Earth Fairy searcher to grab that from your deck to your hand. And during your opponent's draw, if you guess what it is, you get to send it to the graveyard. So if your opponent draws for turn, you say, I think you will draw Sprite starter. And they draw, and it turns out to be starter, they have to discard it, which is really funny. It can very much auto-win matchups, but it's pretty high-rolly. It's a little win more, and it's also, you know, bricky. So let's talk about some of the synergies this stuff has. It works really well with any deck that plays with the graveyard. Who would have guessed that the deck that mills 5 might be good with graveyard decks? Tearlament, Bestial Thunder, and Naturia are all day 1 standouts. Yes, you heard that right. Fucking Naturia. Additionally, Mudora and Keldo can be played as pretty decent defensive cards with utility as either Graveyard Disruption or Extenders when they are milled. You don't really want to play these because, you know, like, they're good, but they're good enough as, like, pseudo hand traps in a mirror match, you know? But, chat, let's be real here. Tearlament is about to go fucking sicko mode with these cards. So, let's look at deck lists. In first place, we have Mateo's Ishizu Tearlament list. I mean, this is a pretty standard Tearlament list. You just cut the hand traps, you cut like the dangers, and who needs cards that have a chance to miss when you could just fucking Gamba? You play like 3 of all the guys that mill you a trillion cards. You play like a Bestial. You go bananas. This deck is pretty good. I don't think I really have to explain that. Another one is Jesse Cotton's Bestial Ishizu Chaos List, or I like to call it BIC. There's a lot of goofy stuff going on here. You got like Herald of Orange Lights because these are fairies. you've got the Bestial engine, you've got like Chaos Levianeer, you've got the prize card. Basically, you just want to mill a bunch of cards, banish a bunch of cards, you just want to go sicko mode. And third was Mike Thomas's Naturia list. He sent it to me. I don't think he played in a tournament with it, but it's very, very funny. So basically how this deck list works is that the Ishizu cards mill a ton of cards, and you're going to mill copies of Sacred Tree. You're going to return Sacred Trees back to your deck with your Transmigration Prophecies, and then you're going to set up stuff like Dweller, Bagushka, and the Naturia Sunflower, which is an Appaloosa. You're going to go into the Naturia Vane, which is a Sprite Carrot, and you're going to go into Naturia Stinkbug, which is Battle Fader. And Naturia Camilla basically is so broken. It makes it so that instead of having to pay your costs, the first time you do so for a Naturia effect, you just mill. Holy hell. Additionally, Mole Cricket is Rescue Rabbit. Yeah, it's Rescue Rabbit for any Naturia. Any two Naturias, actually. So, let's talk about non-Ishizu candidate decks that exist within the format. Fluandereeze is still basically just an I win button deck. Like, if you normal summon Rabina, you get the barrier statue, like, congratulations, you're the greatest fucking gamer on planet Earth. Exosister is basically Fluander, but worse. Like, I'm sorry, dog. Like, if you're playing Exosister in 2022, like, please find a new hobby. And let's talk about some decks that are now irrelevant. So, Sprite is pretty bad. It's not that Sprite itself is like a bad deck, but other decks just got way too good in light of Sprite. Its consistency is just not enough to carry it versus the astronomically high ceiling of like tier limit Ishizu. Like, it's just night and day. Runic cards are now unplayable due to Keldo and Medora, which are the Transmigration Prophecies, basically preventing the Runic Fountain from ever resolving ever. Let's talk about the goo. Let's talk about the spice that people are playing. First off are the Vernisylphs. They are Earth Fairies. You can search them off of Gravekeeper Strap. They also have additional support in the sense where you could technically use them as Naturia support. Next up, we've got Ausa the Earth Charmer, who's definitely going to see a good chunk of play with link laddering and the abundance of Earths flying around, such as the Ishizu stuff. Why wouldn't you play a free Reborn? And chat, did you know that Diviner of the Herald sends fairies to the graveyard? Did you know that Diviner of the Heralds is just Foolish Burial? This card is Burly, but on drugs. And let's talk about the cope. Let's talk about the cards that I think are pretty weak and I don't think are as good as people might think. So first, let's talk about Neko Main King. Basically, all you need to know about it is that if your opponent sends it to the graveyard by their own effect, the turn automatically ends. Like, it's automatically the end phase. Now, Neko Main King seems good on paper. If your opponent's like milling you out, they Agito 10 you, and like you hit a Neko Main King, their turn immediately ends and they're left with this super suboptimal board. But smart players are going to make and resolve Abyss Dweller before trying to mill you out, and it's just going to make Neko Main King like a brick in your deck. Like, people are just going to not use the effect of Keldo or like anything, and then they will just like make a Dweller, activate it, and then start milling you. Next up, Herald of Orange Light has some pretty neat synergies. It seems really, really good to be played alongside the Ishizu stuff, and it stops cards like Dimension Shifter and Abyss Dweller, but will likely be dropped past post Pasadena. It's pretty bad in the tier mirror outside of like, you know, exactly hitting Abyss Dweller, which sucks because, again, because this format is nothing but like tier mirrors. So if you're playing a lot of mirrors and your card's only good against like one card, like sure, if you draw it, like you're the better gamer, but the card's not amazing is what I will say. It's better, honestly, just to make Bagushka versus Shifter decks rather than try to play Herald as an additional out. Like, how does Flunder out Bagushka? Shit's nuts. And finally, Exchange of the Spirit plus the Gravekeeper Strap is pretty bricky overall. I think this is definitely the most cope that people are going to be on, in the sense where, oh my god, Gravekeeper Strap, it's gonna be insane. And it's kind of just gonna have to be a who's who case of, is having an auto win engine within your deck that requires 2 bricks really worth playing? Like, again, it can auto win in the Ishizu tier mirror because it's fucking one-sided Necro Valley. So it definitely will see some success, but I don't know if we're going to see long-term success of it. I wouldn't call it a staple. And finally, let's talk about the takeaways for this format. So we have the Ishizu Millers. They're good. You mill 5. Go nuts with like Bestial or Tier Limit. Like, it's crazy. Second, the Ishizu Transmigration Prophecies. They're good. They act as Graveyard Disruption or Recyclers. You can play them in probably anything, and if you expect a lot of tier limit, main deck them. Graveyard-centric decks. We've got Tier Limit, Bestial Thunder, and Naturia being the main dominant meta contenders for combo decks. In regards to anti-meta decks, they're mainly just going to be shifter decks like Fluandereeze and Exorcism doing what they do best, which is activate shifter and hope you don't have call by. Do you want to play Rogue this format? If so, you are going to lose. If Sprite is a bad deck right now, then rogue decks are definitely bad. Chat, remember when like everyone said like, oh my god, Mathmech is gonna go crazy. And the format as a whole, well, be ready to unironically resolve Chain Link 11. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to catch me live doing these segments, twitch.tv/StevieBlender. Give me your Twitch primes. We've got twitter.com/StevieBlender for the shittiest takes of the century. We've also got youtube.com. So this is where you're watching the video. Hit the sub button. It gives me money. And if you want to hire me, esports orgs, StevieBlender.com for my portfolio. And yeah, that's gonna be it. Later, gamers.